Sorry, my last video got cut off, but we're in the middle of chapter 34, where he says, it's on page 88, says, he smiled, that was happy. I felt again the cuddled tenth of warmth. Sometimes I would stick my nose out to better feel the warmth on the rest of me, under the rug. No, he said. He tapped my chest. Happy is here. He tapped his own chest. Here. I looked past my chin. Inside? Inside. It was getting crowded in there. First angel, now happy. It seemed there was more to me than the cabbage and turnips. I looked at Janina, sitting potato-faced on the floor. She hadn't smiled since the burning cow. Janina does not have happy. He squeezed my shoulder. He smiled sadly. No. Mr. Milgram took the silver candle holder from the pill cabinet and lit the first of 8 candles. The twins came over to stare at the flame. The other new people stayed on the side of their room. Gunshots echoed in the streets as Mr. Milgram said words over the candle flame. The flame gave a faint yellow tint to his frozen breath. Then he sang a song. Sing, Janina, he said, but Janina only gave a grunt or two. Then he pulled Janina and me to our feet, and the twins also, and he made us all hold hands, and we danced in a circle while Mr. Milgram sang, and the candle flame quivered, and somebody screamed in the night. The smile never left Mr. Milgram's face. I copied his smile as best I could. Janina's shoulders slumped and her shoes dragged across the floor. I wondered if the orphans were dancing in a circle. Then Mr. Milgram took something, and another something, from his coat pocket. They were wrapped in newspaper. He gave one to Janina, one to me. I tore mine open. It was a comb. I couldn't believe it. I remembered the canister full of combs in the barber shop. I remembered Yuri combing my hair. Now I had my very own. I threw off my cap and sank the comb like a spade in my hair. It stuck. I pulled. I couldn't move it. I dropped the comb and began tearing apart the thatch of hair with my fingers. I tried the comb again. Using all my strength, I was finally able to pull the comb through my hair. I could feel the lice and their eggs peppering the back of my neck. I remember them ticking onto the floor. In the light of the candle, I combed and combed my hair. Not until the next day did I notice that Janina's gift was still wrapped in the newspaper. You're not going to open it, I said. She pouted. No. So I opened it. It was a comb just like mine. I gave it to her. She threw it on the floor. I picked it up and began combing her curly brown hair. See, I said, doesn't that feel good? It's better than picking out lice with your fingers. She didn't answer. She didn't smile. She did not stop me from combing. On the second day of Hanukkah, when Mr. Milgram went for the silver candle holder, it was gone. Mr. Milgram seemed surprised, but I wasn't. In my world, things existed to be stolen. With the other family in the room, everyone knew who did it and why. If you knew who to deal with, things could be traded for money, and money could be traded for food. Mr. Milgram accused no one. He simply looked out the window and said long enough for all the room to hear, "What a shame when Jew steal from Jew." He found a candle stub and lit the tiny wick with a match. He looked at Janina and me. Who will be the menorah? The menorah was the candle holder. I will, I said. He gave me the candle. He made it for a collar of newspaper so the hot wax would not drip on my hand. I stood at attention and held my arms out the best I could to imitate a menorah. Mr. Milgram said the words and sang. I asked him if I could sing the song I learned at Dr. Korch's orphanage. His eyes glistened in the light from the candle. Yes, yes. So I sang my song, a singing candle holder, and Mr. Milgram and the twins danced in a circle and laughed. Janina refused to get up from the floor. So the days of Hanukkah went. When the candle burned away, Mr. Milgram struck a match and said that maybe it would last for 8 days, like the oil in the story. But it burned away before he finished speaking. So, he said, we ourselves will be the candle flames. He put his hands on his chest. Feel your hearts now, how warm they are. And I did. I could feel my heart getting warm. I could feel the flames in my chest as we danced in a circle. Each night I went out for food, but Janina stayed behind. She never left the room. She never spoke. She even stopped complaining. I combed her hair for hours each day, but I could not comb a smile into her face. I also was losing my happy. Then an idea came to me. Although Janina did not like her comb, I knew of something she would like very much. Almost every time she ate it, I heard her mutter, I wish I had a pickled egg. I knew about pickled herring, but not pickled eggs. I thought, I'll find an egg and a pickle. There was only one day of Hanukkah left. That night, when I went to the other side, I forgot about everything else. I could not remember seeing an egg into my smuggling searches, but then I hadn't been looking for eggs. I knew eggs were kept in cool places, so I looked in ice boxes and basements. I went all to the best houses but the Blue Camel Hotel and found not a single egg. As for pickles, I was hoping for the fat, juicy kind that Yuri used to eat, but the best I could do was a jar of pickle spears in somebody's pantry. I was traveling light that night, so I just took a couple of spears from the jar and put them in my pocket. Now all I needed was an egg. It had begun to snow. I lurked down alleyways, juggling strange doors and windows, trying to get in somewhere. There were ruins now, after the Russians' bombing. Parts of heaven were beginning to look like the ghetto. At last I found an egg, not in a great house, but in a shoemaker's shop, and not in an ice box, but sitting on a scrap of leather on a workbench. I cradled the egg in my hand. I knew how fragile they were. I could already hear Janina's joyful squeal. On the way back on the street, I heard a whistle blast. I thought nothing of it. The jackboots were after someone. The whistle kept getting louder, and then shouting voice, "Jude, Jude!" I didn't understand. No one ever stopped me over here. I ran. A second voice was shouting. Snowflakes pelted my face. I kept my fingers loose about the egg. I could not run in a straight line, for there were craters in the street from the bombing, and I could not lead them into the hole in the wall. I darted into an alley and into the shadows and deep into a heap of rubble. I crouched, panting, pressing the cold, smooth eggs to my lips. The shouts and whistles grew faint. I waited for a long time. The snow piled on my hat and collar. I could smell the pickles in my pocket. I warmed the egg with my breath. The sky was turning from black to gray, and then I made my way to the 2-brick hole. I reached to the other side and laid the egg in the snow and wriggled after it. I had been having no problems getting through lately. Big Henrik's walloping must have worked. The moment I returned to the ghetto side, I realized why jackboots had been after me. I had forgotten to take off my armband. I had been announcing to all Warsaw, "Look, I'm a Jew, escaped from the ghetto." It was a wonder they hadn't noticed me sooner. Darkness, my friend, was leaving. I had to hurry. I ran. Dashing around the corner, I tripped over a body half hidden in the snow and went sprawling onto the sidewalk. The eggs flew from my hand. At first, I was happy for the pillow of snow, but then I picked up the egg. I saw in the dim light that the shell was cracked. I was heartbroken. All the dangers it had survived, only to come to this. And then I noticed it was not only cracked, not broken apart. There was no yellow seeping in the snow. I didn't understand. An egg that cracked but didn't break? It was a miracle. Sorry, my puppies are... Okay. He studied the egg. He held it in his ear and shook it. He nodded. "No," he whispered. "The miracle is you. The egg is hard-boiled. It will not break." A hard-boiled egg? A hard-boiled egg? That was new to me. I hoped Janina would like it. That night I gave it to her. Her eyes bulged like birds' eggs. She peeled off the shell and shoved the whole egg in her mouth. She closed her eyes and made little sounds as she ate it. "Wait," I said. "Pickles." I held them out. "Pickled egg." She waved the pickles away. "Pickled eggs are purple," she mumbled through the mush in her mouth. The twins were staring. Their teeth were going up and down with hers. When she finished eating the eggs, she hugged her father and said, "Thank you." "Thank you, Misha," he said. It was his idea. He found it on the other side. She hugged me. I was surprised she could squeeze so hard. Uncle Shepsel returned. He came to the room only to eat and sleep now. He believed that the less time he spent with the Jews, the more Lutheran he became. But even Lutherans get hungry, and when he came in the door, he sniffed the air and said, "Pickles." To my surprise, Mr. Milgram took a pickle spear from my pocket and gave it to Uncle Shepsel. As for me, I had been awake too long. I lay down. I felt the comb in my hair, combing and combing. Chapter 35, Spring. "What's that?" Janina said. She went to the window. The twins ran after her. We were in the room. It was day. Their voices outside the window. I joined the others. In the courtyard below, children were singing. They sounded more like crows than children. When they sensed we were watching from above, they turned their faces on us, all rags and eyes. Why are they singing? I said. Mr. Milgram's voice came over my shoulder. They are hungry. They're singing for food. We have no food, I said. That was true. When Janina and I returned from heaven each night, she was going out with me again. We dropped something through the window of Dr. Korchik's orphanage and brought the rest straight home and ate it at once. Come away from the window, children, said Mr. Milgram. The singing in the courtyard went out for a while, and then it went away. The flies were always singing. The days were warm, and the bodies were cold, and the flies were singing and drinking at the eyes and the bowls of the children. No one took from the bodies under the newspaper, and there were no clothes left to take, no shoes, only rags. I believed I saw angels lurking behind the eyes of the living, waiting. Angels and crows passed each other, one leaving, the other coming. Every day a parade of body wagons backed up the Geisha Street gate of the cemetery. Smugglers hung like sad fruits from the lampposts with signs around their necks. The piper marched up and down the street and blew his silver flute and cried out, "Come to the Candy Mountain." On Sundays, the jackboots came with their girlfriends to pinch the noses and take pictures and toss pieces of bread to us like pigeons. One soldier made the others laugh. He wore a clothespin on his nose. Food was harder and harder to find, even in heaven. Sometimes, as if all I could find was green bread. Sometimes there was nothing in the garbage can but drippings of fat at the bottom. I had no container, so I scooped 2 handfuls and returned with that. The others ate the fat from my hands. Even the smuggled food, Janina had gotten thinner and thinner. Her face had become as thin as a fox's. While the rest of her became smaller, her eyes grew larger. In other ways, Janina was her old self again, chattering, complaining, shadowing me wherever I went, in everything I did. She made me self-conscious. I hesitated to do things that had always come naturally. I had stopped harassing Bufo so that Janina would also stop, but it didn't work. In fact, she went even further. She became a gnat in the nose of every flop she saw. She called them names. She threw stones. She sneaked up behind them and whacked them on the backs of their knees with a metal pipe. I smacked her. I shouted at her, but I could not change her. I could not understand her moods, her outbursts. I mostly accepted the world as I found it. She did not. She smacked me back and kicked me. In time, I found my own best way to deal with her. On many days, I went off to a favorite bomb crater and lowered myself into it and licked traces of fat from between my fingers and closed my eyes and remembered the good old days when ladies walked from bakeries with bulging bags of bread. Chapter 36. One minute I was walking alone. I was heading for the bomb crater, and the next minute someone was beside me. I gave a yelp. Yuri? He had not been around in a long time. I hugged him. He pushed me away. Shut up, he said. Just listen. He smacked me on the back of the head. Are you listening? Yes, I said. Get out, he said. Get out? He wore a blue and white armband just like mine. I'm not going to say it again. Get out. I was confused. Get out of where? Out of the ghetto, out of Warsaw, out of everywhere. Just get out. Go, and don't look back. There were no scabs or boils on Yuri's face. He wore clothes, shoes. A hollowed-eyed, rag-draped skeleton appeared before us. I could not tell if it was a boy or a girl. It held out its hand. Yuri pulled a fat pickle from his pocket. He bit off a piece, took the piece from his mouth, and gave it to the hand. We walked on. Why? I said. Deportations, he said. They're going to begin soon. They're clearing out the ghetto. Deportations. They're going to get rid of all of you. Take you away on trains. This sounded good to me. Where? I said. Russia? Washington? America? He curled his fingers around my neck. He squeezed. I don't know. You don't want to know. Whatever you do, do not get on the train. Do not be here when the trains come. Just go. Get out. Run. Don't stop running. He looked at the sky. Ever. He stared at me. I never asked you. How did you get to the other side? I told him about the 2-brick hole. He wagged his head. He's almost grinned. You little turd. I knew you'd be good for something. Remember when I saw you in the Blue Camel Hotel? I said excitedly. He bounced a knuckle off my forehead. You didn't see me anywhere. You hear? You never saw me. You don't know me. Another knuckle. You understand? I nodded, but I did not understand. I have to go, he said. Here, he gave me the rest of the pickle. He stepped back. He stared up and down. He wagged his head. He looked sad, darker than ever. He spit on his finger and rubbed my cheek. Before you go, find some water and wash your face. He reached into the rubble of bricks and pulled out a handful of white dust. See this? Rub your face with it. Your hands. He washed my hands in the dust. They became whiter than his. See, before you go, pointing to my armband, take that thing off. Take off that thing. He grabbed my hair and shook my head till I was dizzy. Do not look like anyone. Do not stop for anyone. You're not a Jew. You're not a gypsy. You're a nobody. He slapped my face. Say it. I'm a nobody. He let me go, He backed off. His red hair was cut so short it was just a tinge of red creeping out of his cap. He turned and walked away. He came back. He squeezed my neck. Tell no one but the boys, he said. He looked about. How are they? Are they all right? Not Oleg, I said. Oleg is hanged. With a sign, Yuri stared at me. They smuggle like me, but not through a hole. They're too big. Yuri looked at the sky for a long time. He closed his eyes. He looked back at me. He reached into his pocket and handed me something. Here. He walked away for good. It was a piece of candy. Excuse me. The chocolate coat was melted. I ate it. It was a buttercream with hazelnut heart. I went straight to the boys at the butcher shop ruins. I told them I had seen Yuri. He said we must go. Kuba laughed. Go? Go where? Out of the ghetto, I said. Out of everywhere. Run. Run forever. Kuba and Ferdy laughed. Enos did not. Why? He said. Deportation. The boys looked at another. What's that mean? Said Ferdy. I don't know, said Enos, but I could tell he did. Big Henrik boomed. Run! I saved the pickle for my family. As they chewed the pieces, I said, we must go. I said it in a whisper so the new people in the room could not hear. What are you talking about? Said Uncle Shepsel. Yuri says the trains are coming to take us away. He says we have to run. Who is Yuri? Said Mr. Milgram. Yuri is my friend. Your friend is cuckoo, said Uncle Shepsel. Why would they take you anywhere? They already have you like pigs in a pen. What else can they do to you? And I said, you, he pointed to each of us, because I am no longer one of you. He licked pickle juice from his lip. I'm a Lutheran. Everyone knows. I have nothing to fear. I'm only thinking of you. He jabbed a book in Mr. Milgram's face. With your Hanukkah and stubbornness, you. Janina pulled on her father's sleeve. I want to go away on the train, Tata. Mr. Milgram patted her hand. There will be no train. Uncle Shepsel is right. There's nothing else they can do to us. Chapter 37, Summer. This is on page 95. Janina was the first to hear it. We had just wiggled the way through a hole into the ghetto. My pockets were stuffed with chunks of rotten cabbages. What's that? She said. We listened. It was in the black distance. There was a faint sound of metal clanking, screeching. I don't know, I said. She yelped. It's the trains. She ran stupidly down the middle of the street, ignoring the shadows. Onions bounced from her pockets. I ran after. The clanking and screeching became louder. Janina, stop! I tried to shout without shouting. Curfew began when the sun went down. Nighttime was dangerous for everyone, not just smugglers. I caught her. I held her by the arms, and she tried to kick back. I wanted to hit her, but I was afraid to let go. They'll shoot you, you stupid girl. I felt her shoulders slump. She relaxed. She was giving up. I let go. She turned suddenly and raised up on her tiptoes and bashed her forehead into my nose. I howled. Tears leaped from my eyes. When I finally managed to see, she was gone. Good, I whispered. Stupid girl. I threw a stone. I shouted as loud as I could. Stupid girl! I tried to go home. I tried to sit in the shadow and wait for her to come back. In the end, all I could do was start walking toward the noises in the night. They were coming from Stalky Station. the railroad yard just on the other side of the ghetto wall. I had long since discovered the 2-brick hole I used nightly was not the only one in the wall. Near the Stalky Street gate was another. I wiggled through it and found myself again on the outside of the wall. I saw that there was not one train, but many. Thick yellow light came from the lamps hung from the forest of the poles. Locomotives huffed and whistled and blew steam from their wheels. Endless lines of boxcars into the blackness. Jack boots and jack dogs flashed from the shadows. Yuri was right. I found Janina sitting on a collapsed smokestack. I could not help myself. I climbed up beside her. We watched a train come in and line up in the others. "Where will they go?" she said, never taking her eyes from the trains. "Where will they take us?" "You don't want to know," I said. "Do you know?" "Yes," I lied. "But I'm not telling you," punishing her. We watched some more. She said, "I know where they're going." "Where?" I said. She nodded like her father did when he was saying something important. "They're going to the Candy Mountain." We said nothing of the trains for the next day. We didn't have to. Everyone in the ghetto knew. The words were in the air, buzzing like flies. Trains, deportation, Stalky Station. Why? Where? Uncle Shepsel became more and more agitated. He wagged his book at the new people. He ranted at the people on the stairway. He called down from the window to the courtyard, "Jews, repent! It is not too late. Come with me. Save yourselves." As the butcher stopped ruins, Eno slapped and laughed. He stood on a pile of bricks and spread his arms and shouted, "They're doing it! They're really doing it!" The piper marched into the streets. Sounds of singing came through the open windows of the orphanage. All the eyes and ears turned toward Stalky Station. Even the mourning corpses seemed to be listening. 2 nights after we first saw the trains, as we returned to the garbage cans of heaven, we heard the sounds: gunshots, whistles, screams. Snarling dogs. People, When we came back to the 2-brick hole, we peeked through, our heads pressed together, one eye apiece. People were going by, many of them, down the middle of the street. Everyone carried a suitcase. My first stupid thought was, "Parade!" When I saw the jackboots poking with the rifles and the dogs lunging, snapping, the people went by so slowly. Their feet seemed to slide across the street, not walk. They did not look like they were going to Candy Mountain. I thought they would never pass. The next day, the streets were empty. Voices in the stairway and the courtyard said, "There's a quota. The trains must take 5,000 Jews every day." Voices. 10,000 voices. Until... And then someone said, "Resettlement." What did he mean, resettlement? What resettlement? "They had had enough of us here," said someone. "They are sick of us. They are kicking us out. They are sending us to the east, to resettlement. We will have our own villages, no one but Jews." The word resettlement took place of the word deportation. The word resettlement took the place of the word deportation. "Still," said Uncle Shepsel, "it's better not to be a Jew in the first place." And the jackboots came in the night, and the whistles blew, 1 block, 1 street at a time. Sliska Street, Panska Street, Twarda Street. Every day, every night, the slow gray parade shuffled towards Shalka Station. The people on the stairway muttered, "Resettlement, resettlement. We will be free. I will mend shoes again. We will eat." The people looked into each other's eyes and nodded. Yes, yes. Still, they did not go outside. The streets remained empty, except for the piper. Sometimes when Janina and I climbed through the people on the other side at night, a voice would say, "Don't go, you'll miss the resettlement." Saglana Street, Clonda Street. One day, Mr. Milgram said to me, "Stay close to Janina wherever you go, every second, day and night." His hand was on my shoulder. I was shocked. Not that he knew she went out with me at night, but that he was allowing her to do so. There was one thing Mr. Milgram did not know, how much his daughter loved the trains. Every night we crawled back through the hole to the ghetto. She ran for the courtyard. She dumped her food under the porch where she could get it later and ran off to the hole near the wall, near Stalky Street gate, and squirted herself back to the other side. I remember Mr. Milgram's orders. I had no choice but to follow. Night after night we did this. We stood at the end of the fallen smokestack and stared at the trains coming and going, the parades of people climbing into boxcars, the screech of wheels, the clack of dogs' teeth, the locomotives coughing like dying Jews. In the days I went to the butcher shop ruins, but the boys were disappearing one by one. Where's Ferdy? I asked. Where's Cuba? No answer. Had they taken Yuri's advice? Did they run away? Were they on the other side of the wall running? Were they hanging from lampposts with signs around their necks? Were they in sewers? Had Bufo found them? Ferdy, Cuba, Enos, one by one, until only Big Henrik was left, clumping after the piper. I saw jackboots pointing at them. No one came to take pictures anymore. All day, all night, parades of people. One day I was dozing in the milkweed alley when Janina came calling, Misha! Misha! She grabbed my hand and pulled me out in the street. The orphans were going by. They were marching. Their heads were high, and they were singing the song I had learned. I sang along with them. No one was dressed in rags. Everyone wore shoes. Dr. Korchik led the way. He marched as straight as a jackboot. He wore a hat with a little red feather. We stood there until I could no longer see them, no longer hear them. Labelta Street, Wallowa Street, Geisha Street. Chapter 38. And then the old man was there. It was strange. He was not there, and then suddenly he was. He did not even have rags on his feet. One eye was the color of milk. It never blinked. I have come back, he said. We were gathered around him in the courtyard. I am here to tell you. I escaped. I saw. There is no resettlement. Someone called. Of course there's a resettlement. We go to villages in the east. They're waiting for us. The man repeated. There is no resettlement. It's a lie. You lie, another someone called. Look, someone else called, waving a piece of paper. This is a postcard from my brother. He says he's doing fine. Listen, we're doing fine. We are happy in our new village. We hope to see you soon. Lies, said the old man. He did not shout. We had to strain to hear him. He looked and sounded as if he wanted to sleep. It's a trick. Your brother is dead. There was a shriek. Many shouted at once at the old man. Go away! Go away! Only when the shouting died down did we know that the old man was saying more. Fences that fry, prison coops, ovens, never stop. Ashes fall like snow. There was silence. Someone said, Ovens? Are they baking pies for us? Laughter. Ovens for what? Came another voice. The old man raised his head. His milky eye turned to the speaker. For you. Silence again, and then a louder burst of laughter and jeers. You're a crazy old man. We have postcards. The old man wobbled. I leaned my shoulder into his hip and to hold him. Above me I heard his ragged breathing. The people waited for him to say more, but he only turned and walked away. A voice, Uncle Shepsel, cried out, Jews, repent! It's not too late. A day after the old man spoke in the courtyard, Mr. Milgram whispered to me in the corner of the room, When you and Janina go out tonight, I want you to stay on the other side. I want you to run away. Don't come back. Keep Janina with you. Take her hand. First, Yuri, now my father. Janina wants to go on the train, I told him. She wants to go to Candy Mountain. Mr. Milgram's eyes slowly closed. Like Janina's, they had become enormous, as if to hold sadness. There is no Candy Mountain, he said. At that moment I knew the old man in the courtyard had been telling the truth, and I understood why Mr. Milgram had not forbidden Janina to go out. He knew that when the parade of trains came by, a child might be safer away from home. He stared into my eyes. He gripped my forearm. Take her hand. Keep her with you. Make her go. Take off your armbands and run. Run until daylight. Then hide. Run at night. He squeezed my arm so hard I would have thought he was trying to hurt me if I hadn't known better. Do not bring back food tonight. Do not return. Run, run. That night, Mr. Milgram was not sleeping when we got up to go. He pressed us to himself for a long time. I think he was crying. He whispered words to our ears that I did not understand and let go. When we got to the other side that night, I took Janina's hand, as Mr. Milgram had told me. At first, she said nothing. When she saw we were not stopping at the garbage cans, she planted her feet and said, Where are we going? I don't know, I said. We're just going. She yanked her hand out of mine and stomped off. I went after her and grabbed her hand back. Tata said to come with me. Where? Away. Now run. I started to run, pulling her along. She jammed her heels into the sidewalk and screamed and kicked me. Just when I thought she was finished with me, she spat on my shirt and stomped on my foot. I screamed. She ran off. We did not go to the trains that night. We returned to the room with brown cabbages and fat. Mr. Milgram was still awake. He squeezed my arm and shook me. What did I tell you? I could not see his face in the darkness, but his voice was furious. I think he wanted to smack me. Then he pressed us against himself. This is how I went for a number of nights, Mr. Milgram told me, and then the both of us, not to return. Janina refused to obey. We returned to the furious voice and the smack that never came. Zimmerhoff Street, Nyla Street, Lubecki Street, and then one night we could not come back. We'll start with chapter 39 in the next video.